A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Norman Goodfellows, and welcome to the hustle and bustle of the prison break market. Finally, Dan Really Likes Wine goes to jail. Now, if you're part of the Johannesburg viewership, Greater Gauteng, it's a space you may well know. It's a lovely spot on the fringes of Johannesburg to come out to and enjoy a really good weekend, really good food, really good drinks. It's a little spot of culinary, gourmet, wine and drink escapism, except today it's just a little different, because normally on a Monday this place would not be open. However, it has been happily hijacked by the team at DGB for a showcase of some wines that are really, really important to the South African wine story. And that is why I find myself out here this evening, not just to drink and enjoy some wine that I know rather well, all of the brands this evening you've seen regularly on the show over the years, but also to see how they fit in to the South African wine story and why they're so important, I feel, to our drive to making an increasing impact on delivering volumes of premium wine beyond our borders. And that is such an important part of the future of South African wine, lifting the perception of South African wine, but also the availability and the volume of the really high quality wine, not just the stuff that languishes at the basement of supermarket shelves around the world. So we're going to be chatting through the course of this evening to a number of winemakers from brands like Boschendal and Backsberg and Bellingham and Friars Cove, talking to the winemakers about the wines, about the new stuff coming out and the wine in the future, and also catching up in just a moment with the chairman of DGB, who understandably has got a beaming smile on his face as he looks around at a selection of some of South Africa's favourite and most successful brands. So it's a DGB night of indulgence, to which I am really looking forward to. And we're going to kick off with Tim Hutchinson in just a moment. Before we do that, though, here's a quick look at some of the latest wine news. So this is a tasting coming up tomorrow. If you happen to be in Greater Fourways, come and join me at the Norman Goodfellows store. Tomorrow evening we have got the wines of Noordhoek and Coin Rockskalk. Opperman, back down in the Breda River, moved down into the Stellenbosch area a few vintages ago and is starting to apply his trademark touch to some terrific wine. I'll be with him. We'll be talking through those wines, sharing them with you and pairing them up with some great canapes. If you'd like to come along, last couple of spots are available. It only costs you R100, and all 100 of that goes to a charity. It's a really nice evening. It's for a good cause, and it's a chance to explore some very good South African wine. Also coming up, this is at the Victoria Yards Market. It is the Ex Animo Wine Fair. Now, they do this every year. It is the chance, this is the second last weekend in August, to drink some wine, in many cases a little off the beaten track. Ex Animo specializes in the niche brands, the smaller brands, the more bespoke and cutting edge. They've got some really fun stuff lined up, and it is headed your way. If you get down to Ex Animo's, head over to their website and go and have a look. Not too many tickets available. It's quite a bespoke and intimate event, but it is one well worth getting along to. That's the end of August. Also at the end of August, 2 consecutive Wednesdays, the 24th and the 31st, 23rd and 30th, 23rd and 30th. That is the chance to join the Cape Winemakers Guild and Nedbank to have a look at the wines that are going into this year's Cape Winemakers Guild auction. It's the opportunity for the winemakers themselves to offer something very special that they feel speaks to their terroir, to their winemaking ability, and deliver a really unique wine. Well, it's only available at the auction. You can bid in the auction later in the year. That'll be the first weekend in October. But the end of August, either Cape Town on the 23rd or the 30th of August in Johannesburg, the Nedbank Atrium in Rivonia, your opportunity to taste those wines, meet some of the Cape Winemakers Guild winemakers, and revel in some exceptional and very unique South African wine. And then finally, the chance this month to win prizes with the Beast 10-time Toreros wine made by Gerard Holden, another rugby lover, down at Holden Manse. This is a 2016 Cab Shiraz blend, not dissimilar in style to the bigger Australian wines of a similar makeup. And if you buy any of that this month, either on the Dan Really Likes Wine store or through Norman Goodfellows, you go into a draw and somebody is winning a signed case of the wine from the 2019 Rugby World Cup winner, Tendai, the Beast, and Torreira, a wine big, bold, and engaging, just like the man himself. Right, well, welcome to the Prison Break Market. You can hear the buzz in the background. It starts to fill up, and not surprisingly so, because it is quite an attraction. A great selection of premium wines from premium labels, and your chance to see where they are and where they are going, and why they are putting a smile on the face of my first guest this evening. Because Tim Hutchinson, when I look at you and I look around, even somebody who's done quite as much in the liquor trade as you have over the years must get a real skip in the step when you see all of these brands come together. And you know, this is your empire.
Well, I mean, it's just great to be back in the circuit of COVID. I mean, we didn't see customers, zoomed our relationships to death. So no, it's fantastic. All the winemakers are here. We're focusing on our terroir-led wines. So we need the winemakers here to tell the story, and we're expecting a couple hundred people, and it should be a lovely evening.
It's the chance to have a look at wines from a different selection of brands. People who aren't too familiar with them might look, so hang on, how can you have all these different brands? They're all making wine. Surely they're all competing with each other and fighting with each other. The people who don't know that space so well, give us an understanding of how these brands come together, and how as DGB you work that balance.
Well, you know, every brand's got its own personality, and we're very uncorporate in that the winemaker dictates with the viticultural team the style of the wines, and every wine has its own little niche. Yeah, you could say that they compete, but within, let's say, Chardonnay as a sector, you know, we have Chardonnay from 4 or 5 different regions. We have different styles. Some people like the wooded. We've got a couple of unwooded Chards. So now everyone's got its own niche, but you know, I don't want a winemaker to be worried about. I'm the Backsberg winemaker. I must be worried about what's happening in Boschendal. I must do what my terroir dictates, and build it from there. You know, it's. I think the most exciting thing is our terroir work, and unfortunately, our viticulturalist had a cycling accident, and he broke collarbones and ribs and all sorts of things. So he's been a bit down and out. But they basically are the key guys in our lives these days. You know, we're busy with a massive replanting program that I'll brief you on in the next 10 days in the Helderberg. But, you know, we're up to 70, 80 hectares to be replanted. There's a lot of disease there. It'll go well over 100. And then you can just see from that our commitment to terroir and to the better regions. I mean, we sit there, we dig a vineyard up, we've got no cash flow for the next 4 or 5 years. Now, do that on 80, 100 hectares of vineyards. It's a serious commitment. But, you know, there's going to be a boom in premium wines. South African wines are going to go up in price. They're ridiculously cheap. And not because we want to hit the price, we have to. But we've got to make the farmers viable, and they're our business partners. So, no, we're very excited, and the wines will speak for themselves.
And you obviously believe in this entire process considerably, because you're investing in everything you do across the board, including different brands. And over the last few years, there have been some acquisitions. How does that process work? Is it hours and hours of spreadsheets and formula and talking to computers, or is there just a healthy chunk of gut instinct to it?
Yeah, I think there's no business school science to it. I mean, you know, when we heard, for example, that there was in Cove an opportunity in the West Coast, we know young Bloemfontein very well. It was a logical move. I see the Swartland was a new frontier. I see the West Coast being the next frontier. We're doing a huge planting program there, really investing in it. I'd love to get you up there. But we redone the cellar door. I'm probably 4 weeks off, finish the restaurant. It's a fantastic opportunity. Backsberg, when that came along, I thought, you know, I've known the Back family for years. I just love them as people, their integrity, their social responsibility. I thought, here's a winery with a 100-year history. That is an icon. Sydney Back was an icon. Again, it was a no-brainer. I think we can rejuvenate the brand and lift it to old heights.
and that in turn lifts a lot of the rest of the industry. And that's something I'm really excited about. I know you and I have had this conversation before about looking at DGB and perhaps a brand or two within it as a Penfolds of South Africa and being able to take premium wine in volume to the rest of the world. That's such an important part of sustaining South African wine. Do you feel we're getting closer to that? Do you feel that that is part of the vision that you have for the group?
It is. It's still a challenge to generate the volume at the higher price points. But I mean, I've got reverse pressure now. I've run ahead with the viticultural team. We're replanting. We're tying up agreements. We've got the wine on the way, so we've got to sell it. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Otherwise, I'm going to have to increase my own capacity to 10 litres a day or something.
Well, if anybody's capable of it, I certainly would back you, Tim. But we do want other people to be drinking, and drinking it around the world. And that's another part of what you do, is you have this extraordinary network of people distributing product into markets in all sorts of places. Where do we sit at the moment, from your perspective, in terms of having an impact on the global markets for wine?
We are the great news. The wines are, you get the Janice Robinsons of the world. The wines, Michael Fridjohn's here this evening. He'll tell you that our wines are really starting to get acclaim globally. But you know, it's an interesting situation for me. Is that you know, when you look at, for example, the Australian model, I think one thing we haven't done as an industry, I don't think we've had enough teamwork. I think it's a bit of a South African Buddha politic, bit of jealousy, rivalry. But you know, the pricing of wines, I tell the buyers overseas, you ain't seen nothing yet. And maybe, you know, one of the problems I've got with distributors, and I'll share it with you very quickly. When South Africa, Mandela freedom arrived, a lot of people who approached South African wine producers were entrepreneurial types. Thought, hell, here's maybe a buck to be made. And they were good salesmen, they're good business people. But the established distributors who were selling top-end France and Italy weren't running around looking for a South African wine. So as we go more premium, in a lot of cases, a lot of distributors don't have distributors that understand premium and that service that sector of the market. You know, you get a distributor who's got a relationship with Sainsbury's, he ain't getting you on premium wine lists in London. And that is a bit of a dilemma. You know, you have these long-term relationships with distributors, and it's a tough call, but you outgrow them, you know. So it's not a bed of roses. That if it was, everyone would be premium, but no, we are totally committed to it. And, you know, a bit like we love our rugby, I want to be proud of the South African wine industry. You know, I really do. It's, you know, the industry better than me. It's full of amazing people, amazing stories to tell. So you better help us. We've got a challenge ahead.
Well, you're obviously still very excited about this industry. It's about everything you've done. Before we let you dash off some tasting, give me a couple of wines, Tim, that I should have a look out for, that just got something exciting or different about them that are worth trying.
I think you should go and have a look at the Last Elephant. I think on Old Road, Stone Trail is an interesting wine. You must go to Friars Cove. You know, people paying those kind of price points for Sauvignon Blanc, and it's the growth of that's fantastic. And we've got an interesting Grenache. We're doing a lot of work with new varietals, so you'll see one or two of them. A couple of them are 2 or 3 years away, but enjoy.
I suspect we have many more conversations over the next little while. I'm going to hold you to that chat about the Helderberg in the next week or two, and I'll also hold you to that trip up to Friars Cove. I promise you I'll come, and it is on my horizon. Tim, thank you. Thanks for a wonderful evening.
Have a good evening.
And enjoy it.
Cheers.
Okay, Tim Hutchinson, the chair of DGB, who's here purely in a quality control space to ensure that all the wine is going down. You see already there's a huge crowd. Apologies, a couple of people have swept past our security in front of the camera and jumped into shots a little unexpectedly, but that'll probably happen a couple more times this evening. It's a very busy night. Michael Fridjohn was mentioned. I've already seen Cordeline Morris. I've seen a number of winemakers, Jacques Fillion, floating past. Saw him just a moment ago, just here as part of this extraordinary team of winemakers. And the question I'm going to be asking our winemakers, this sense of a team that they are, how they do all come together, and how they celebrate. And that's a nice segue into our first wine evening. About time as our bubbles maker extraordinaire. Daniel, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you again, Dan.
And what have we got here this evening? What are you kicking off with?
So we are with the Boschendal Cove. This is our new release. It's our 2016 vintage. So just reaching the mark now. So as always, 100% Algan, Pinot Noir late, so about 60% Pinot Noir, 40% Chardonnay. And this one, what's special is we get that extended time on lease. So here we have 60 months on lease, so really reaching that optimal, that premium time on lease, that softening, that rounding, and that incorporation into these characters. And also in terms of the residual sugar, it's at about a 4 gram per litre.
Nice.
So yeah, get that crispness from that algan fruit.
That is a signature. So too is patience. You have far more patience than I ever would, because you guys are becoming known for hanging on. You're not going to let your bubbles out in the market too soon. It probably meant a few conversations with Tim and the accountants just to hang on to it, because it does add to the process. But the results are definitely there. And as a winemaker, when you're able to give it that extra time, the results must just be so heartwarming.
It is, I think, the one thing, and this also ties in with the whole motto of Captain and the Captain Producers Association, is perfected by time. And the longer we are able to really push to get that extended time on lease, that incorporation, that marriage of the confidence of the wine, where you not only have this extremely fine use, this beautifully, but all the flavors as well. And then also, even after this forging, and you've had that time release in bottle, be it where you have that time for the bottle to also rest before we see the market. So really getting that incorporation of all the flavors, all the aspects of what makes the Captain so unique and special. But I mean, the time on lease is really the sweet spot, and we try and get that as far as possible, as much as possible. Especially with our vintage Captain seeds.
You're producing stuff, you're making it, knowing that you're not going to see this on shelves for, in this case, 7 years. When you're starting that process, you got the first grapes in hand, you're getting sense of them. How close, how accurate are you in knowing what that end result is going to be? Or does it still take you by surprise sometimes?
I think we've seen that become very clear as where your terroir expression, even with Captain the site and the vineyards and how well they are looked after, and the climate and how that represents the wine, where yes, there is an aspect of kind of looking into the that glass ball and trying to navigate, like, how will this show in 5 or 10 or 15 years? I mean, Jean Lalonde is now, we just transitioned into our 2012 vintage, so that's 11 years. So there is that bit of a glass ball effect where you kind of see, you get that hint of what will give you in terms of personality and character. It's kind of like seeing your children grow up to a certain extent. But also on the other side, when you have those sites and you have those vineyards, it leaves much less for the imagination. You know the quality you're getting, and you know that you just have to keep it safe until it reaches the bottle. And the rest of the work, I mean, it's a lot less guesswork.
The quality is, I think, being more and more appreciated. The time is adding to that. The understanding of the market now of South African Captain, which I think for a long time was kind of seen below champagne. We can't quite afford a bottle of French, so we'll buy a bottle of South African. I get a sense that that's shifting considerably, and a lot of people are now appreciating that Captain can stand on its own right. Is that translating broadly into the market? Are most South Africans, and indeed wine drinkers, are drinking Captain around the world, starting to see it not kind of below champagne, but as a real competitor?
I think what we do see is that locally, the appreciation and the volume and the drive behind it and how much people want to drink it is definitely growing quite quickly. And especially so in the last 5-8 years. Internationally as well, fastest growing category in the wine industry, but what we do see is people are realizing that even though it's traditional method sparkling, that they are starting to make the differentiation. It's no longer, oh, it's less than champagne, or this is not Scotch, it's brandy, or it's kind of that mental shift that it's the same style, it's the same production type, but it's different origins, and people are starting to respect that and find that interesting. And I think that one thing that brings to is that people, it's just having that sense of adventure and going beyond the norm. And I think people are very happily surprised by trying new things. If they are from the international market, they're trying Captain for the first time. I think they are very happily surprised with the quality that they see.
Now, this quality is going to be on show today in the context of so many other wines. And before we let you go off to your army of fans who want to try out the bubbles, tell me a bit about this family of winemakers that you have, because there are all of these brands sitting underneath, and you're making lots of different styles of wines amongst you. But is there a lot of conversation? Are there WhatsApp groups? Are you bouncing off each other on a regular basis for a greater collective understanding?
Absolutely. I think the Captain Producers Association is a body in the industry that really encompasses that as well, that support within the industry, where it's the share of knowledge and the share of experiences, not just to encourage the growth of one brand, but to see everyone and the whole industry and the whole category be uplifted and strengthen their focus on quality and also their presence in market. So I think there are a lot of courses. I mean, there's quite a few producers that are very established in capacity production, but I think they need to put out the ethic that, I mean, Singleton, the family there, they've all been paramount to the establishment of capacity in South Africa, and I'm also quite proud of where Boschendal also features in that, where we were the second producer of capacity in South Africa. So I think there's such a rich history to it, but it's also such an open environment for sharing knowledge and experiences to make sure that we aren't just advancing our own production but the whole industry.
You mentioned Bubbles Ferrer. It is his birthday today. I think he's 107. I'll have to check that. So I'm going to come and have a glass of bubbles with you to taste him a little later. But I'll ask you one question before you slip away, and that is, from everybody else here, at the risk of upsetting the people you leave out, what's one other bottle of wine I should look out for tonight?
I must say that Elgin will always be a firm favorite. And Elgin Chardonnay, Elgin Sauvignon Blanc, and Suzanne. Good
All right. I shall seek them out. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you. I'll come and have some bubbles with you a little later, and be part of a great evening. There we go. One of the bubbles brands in South Africa. Look, there are plenty of them who are doing really well, but Boschendal have really driven it. They've put a lot of time and energy behind it and resources. If you're keeping your bubbles going for that long, on the least for 16 months in the case of that, I think looking at about 11 years or thereabouts for the Jean Long. Just an extraordinary commitment to making sure that they're getting the very, very best out of the wine that they have. So that's some bubbles. Let's say goodbye, bubbles, and say hello to some Chardonnay, which has just been mentioned. Everybody I've spoken to about today that I'm coming along, Boschendal, Chardonnay, and Elgin has come up in conversation time and time again. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the Chardonnay, which is a wine that is getting the best out of Elgin while under the Boschendal brand, and speaks to what Tim was saying at the start of the show. That real focus on terroir and understanding what's going to make the best possible wine that we can get, rather than trying to shoehorn stuff into spaces where it's maybe not so comfortable.
Oh yes, I must say, Dan, it's I'm actually quite new to the team, so I only joined just before the 2023 harvest. So it's the first time I've actually worked with Elgin really as a region, and specifically Chardonnay from Elgin, and it is really a fantastic site. There's just something about the longer growing, the cool wine region, longer time on vine, gives time for the vine to really accumulate that flavor, allocated to the grapes. Beautiful shale soils, we just get this great elegance, freshness, and there's this real sense of expression of sight that we get there, which is that some call it flintiness, matchstick, minerality. There's just, you can, when we taste it blind, even, that's Algan. And that gets me excited.
Which is gets us excited when we drink it, because you've taken that and you've translated it into such great wine. The art of making this wine, it's not just sitting in the cellar, right, my grapes have arrived, let's try and do something with them. How much time are you spending out in the vineyard, talking to the viticulturalists, understanding where those grapes have come from, so you're best prepared once you have that one opportunity to get it just right for each vintage?
No, for sure. So much time spent in the vineyard, and even before the vineyard is planted, really looking at the soils, what clone to select, where to plant, how to trellis, etc. So all the effort before, and then really, growing that vine up, and then sorting, get the best quality grapes, pick at the perfect time, then gentle handling in the winery, whole bunch pressing for that real elegance and freshness. Fermentation started off naturally without any inoculated yeast. Then we inoculate a little bit. Fermentation in French oak barrels, but we really try to express the clarity of the site and the fruit, really, rather than having oak dominate. So the oak is subtle, but it's there. It's just supporting the wine. So
thank God for that. Winemakers have stopped beating us over the head with trees, which is very welcome. You mentioned their clones. For many people, that's a completely, it's science fiction. They don't know what this is about. If we think it wasn't that long ago in grand winemaking terms, we didn't even have Chardonnay in South Africa. Now we've got so many people looking at what is the clone that makes things right for us. You look at people like Richard Kershaw, who got such a keen understanding of it in a way that people like me can understand. Explain how that clone selection works and how it allows you to do an even better job of the wine you're making.
Oh yeah, so for us, it's really, before we select the clones, we do tastings of maybe different countries who have had those clones for a while. And you taste a sort of different expression of that specific varietal. Then you start looking at your soils. Where does it work? Which works? So, for example, one of the Chardonnay clones that I really enjoy was 548, which is quite low crop, but it gives real intensity and expression of Chardonnay character. A bit more mouth, feel roundness on the palate, but still that freshness. So you need to, for example, sacrifice a little bit of yield because you get a little bit less grapes per hectare. But I think the quality justifies it. So
there's clearly a clone that inspires you. What about the winemakers that inspire you? You're relatively early in your winemaking journey and fairly fresh to Boschendal. There are lots of people, especially with Chardonnay, who've been making such great wine. Jancis Robinson raving about South African Chardonnay recently. There are a lot of different styles and interpretations. Who are the winemakers you've got the poster of up on the bedroom wall, the guys who made the sort of Chardonnay that you go, gee, I'd like to make wine like that one day?
Yeah, no, I must say so. My previous winery that I worked with, I worked a lot with Johan Malan at Simon Surf, and although Simon Surf isn't traditionally known maybe for still wine Chardonnay, someone like Johan is really someone that has such a in-depth knowledge of every varietal, for example. So as a young winemaker coming in and learning from someone with that experience and that world knowledge even was amazing. So he was really someone in my early winemaking career to really look up to. And I mean, there are so many, but that was someone who really, I think, put something into my career.
Well, it's a career that's got a very exciting chapter ahead of it now at Boschendal, and good luck with it. Before I let you go, same question I put to Danielle. Loads of different wines around here. Give me something from somewhere here today. Do you think I should go and have a crack at that might be a little bit different, a little bit cool, something you just fallen in love with?
So, okay. Obviously, I love all the Boschendal wines, but I'm gonna go outside of Boschendal this one. So there's a real interesting white blend from Bellingham called Frida. So it is Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, and some in the third round. But it is such a complex, beautiful, lightly oaked wine, depth, flavor, expression. It's so interesting and had amazing rating. I think it scored 97 points worth decanter in the wine tasting recently. So go buy that.
I've got goosebumps already. Good luck with the new role. Good luck with the wine, and thanks for sharing some Chardonnay with us.
So great to see you.
Some Chardonnay out of Elgin, and that Elgin fruit, whether it is from brands in Elgin themselves, I look at stuff like Oak Valley doing such specific things with clones, or some of the brands like Boschendal bringing that fruit in and making the best out of it and delivering wines of such precision and such duty to terroir. The success is fantastic. Now, one of the advantages of being a young winemaker and arriving at somewhere like Boschendal is that you've got some pretty serious senior talent. Guys who've been there for a while. Now, I'm not saying he's old. I'm just saying he's done the job for a while, and he does it rather well. Shah, welcome back to the show. Lovely to have you.
And awesome being here, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, what a cool evening. This is just a wonderful celebration.
I've just been telling some of my fellow winemakers, it's phenomenal. It's a what an evening, and I can really say you can go to every single stand, taste some premium wines, all wine storage with stories, heritage, and it's cool.
Yeah.
Myself, I want to go around and taste one.
And I'm sure you will, and I'm sure you'll do it 90% with, these are my mates, they're my fellow winemakers, fantastic. Is there just that little 10% where you go, gee, I wish I'd made that wine myself, that's brilliant?
Definitely. No, for sure. This year, some of the winemakers traveled to Burgundy, to Rhone, and to Bordeaux with myself and Stefan just recently for the last 2 weeks. In fact, we just came back. It was awesome, just bouncing ideas off each other. And then you can also hear the tricks of the trade within the company, what they're doing. So, it's like obviously the terroir is amazing.
Let's talk about that because I was hugely envious of it. It was clearly a wonderful opportunity, both to look at the old world history and how they're doing things, but also by extension compare how you're doing things now with what's happening in Europe. What were the major takeaways of that trip in terms of wine in Europe versus what's happening with you and your colleagues?
Well, firstly, I must say I'm really thankful and grateful. Obviously, it wasn't my first time, so we've been there before, and really thankful and grateful that we, as a company, but as Boschendal, we're on the right track. So it's all about the terroir, it's all about the terrain, it's all about the soils, about the aspects and stuff. And then, but what you shouldn't forget is that people love stories, people love history, people love the authenticity of making wine. But these days, it's just to incorporate all of those tools, and then also to stay true to your heritage and planting, ensuring that whatever you do, that you plant on the correct cultivars, the correct sites to make some premium wine. So I just think once again, so the French has been there for hundreds of years. They've been making some awesome wines. They've been really true to specific areas, making specific cultivars. I think Burgundy specifically, they've been great with pinpointing specific terroirs. So it's awesome. It's awesome to bring that back, to see what they're doing. I think where they've got some challenges with, global warming is quite a big thing. I can see where most of their harvest is basically about 10 days earlier. They're struggling with heat. People always tell you that it's so cool and so cold. And there I got there and it's like basically 35, 40 degrees Celsius, 2 weeks non-stop. So I think we're also quite blessed with choosing our terroirs, is that ensuring that we high up into the mountains, close to the sea, and also depending on the variety, what we want to do and the style we want to make. So I think South Africa's got something on the forefront.
Which I think kind of answers my next question, which was, without being arrogant about it, do you come back from that sort of trip going, you know what, we're making some pretty good stuff. They're not streets ahead of us. We're playing very much in the same broader park.
I think what's really nice at the moment currently is that I think if you put in a blind tasting where you can't be pretentious, is that South Africa is putting some phenomenal wines out there, and it's comparing against the rest. We're taking the price points out of the equation here. But our top end terroir driven wines are beautiful, but they are still making some awesome wines. We are not France. we are New World country, South Africa.
Now that's
we make some
important.
awesome wine. So we've got our own story to tell, but it's also just cool to see what they've been doing and how they've been doing it and how they're staying true to their roots. So that's cool.
Tell me quickly about the wine beside that broad right shoulder, your murder weapon of a Black Angus bottle. It just comes with so much presence and character. And it's a wine I've been seeing just on some of the WhatsApp groups that I'm on. It's kind of popped up a lot. People are now getting to know it, getting to understand it, and getting to see a wine that's almost a counterpoint to some of the styles of wine we're seeing a lot. There's this influx of the, I think Ibn Sadi refers to as the hipster wines, the ones that are a bit lighter, a bit more delicate, and wines that are beautifully made. But this has got some real heft and presence to it. It's got some old school South African brilliance.
I just think once again, so Black Angus, if I had to make one wine, and there's the one that I want to be known for, it's the Black Angus. You know, it's the original estate blend. It started off as a Syrah Cabernet blend. Nowadays it's still Syrah dominant, but with some other border varietals, just making it still a non-conventional blend. However, what we are doing here, it's a wine that is elegant, it's classic, it's got quality of tannin, but still some beautiful fruit. It's 100% a terroir wine from the Helderberg area. And there the terroir is speaking for itself, so we can see the longevity. But those days of big, bold, overly extracted, those are gone, you know. So we really are looking for stuff that's elegant, that's vibrant, that's got longevity, but that's just got that quality of tannin. What I love about this wine is the freshness and almost the pressure on your tongue from that tannin, but that fine tannin, that fine texture. I like a wine to make. Really, I love it.
You've managed to strike a chord between kind of presence but also elegance, and it's not an easy thing to do, but then you are a rather accomplished winemaker, so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Before I let you get off to do some tasting, because I know you have plenty to do, same question everyone is getting tonight. Give me a wine outside of your particular group that I should be looking out for that you think is something particularly cool, fun, different, interesting.
Outside the group?
Outside of Boschendal, but one of the other brands here tonight.
I love the Franschhoek Glass Elephant. It is a phenomenal wine. It's a Bordeaux style blend. Love it.
Hearing that from a couple of people tonight. Jacques, thank you. Enjoy the evening. Lovely to have you on. Enjoy the rugby this weekend. I know you'll be glued to the screen. And thanks for sharing some great wine with us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Enjoy.
There we go. One of the wizards of Boschendal, putting together, amongst others, the Black Angus. Also the man behind the Nicholas, which has also delivered great success for Boschendal. Finding that wine that's premium, it's at a reasonably top price point without being completely out of range, and in the hands of Jacques and his team, and he'll be the first to tell you, it is a big team they have there, putting together just some more really, really exciting wine. There is plenty of it here at the Prison Break Market. Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Norman Goodfellows, is at the DGB Showcase this evening, where a whole range of wine is being tasted, and it's not all from places you conventionally find wine in. In fact, our next wine, you just about need your passport to go and find, as well as a couple of aeroplanes, a bus, 2 boats, and a very good GPS. All the way from the West Coast. Lisa, welcome. Lovely to have you.
Oh, nice to see you again.
And this must be slightly daunting. People, electricity, roads, traffic lights. You're a long way from home. So, welcome in, and welcome to a celebration of so many wines. Yours, I think, is going to get a lot of attention, though, because in a very short space of time, this brand that is suddenly emerged as part of the DGB stable has absolutely taken off. Has it taken you by surprise just how well things have gone?
It did actually, because this was actually a new concept when they bought Firescope. It wasn't in the pilot plans at the beginning, and we were looking for something that would fit in between the other 2 brands that we had. So they came up with the Firescope, and it started out small the first year, and it just exploded. I mean, it's just the 3 wines that we selected, that we selected to put into bottles, just mind blowing. People loved it, and it just exploded.
And what about for you as a winemaker, having had such a long stint in Durbanville, now off to a slightly quieter part of the world, and a very different part of the terroir that South Africa has to offer? What was that challenge like for you as a winemaker?
It was the change was very significant for me. So I came from a big salad, moving to a much smaller salad. But the opportunity that it gave me was that I could really focus on more intricate winemaking techniques, and I was working with different vineyards and different sites. So obviously coming with that is different flavor profiles. So I can play a bit more and very interesting wines coming out of it. Very vast, different from the Durban City of Lungs, but it's really out of it.
And when you get there, I'm always fascinated as to how much of a soothsayer the winemaker is, how much you kind of know what's going to happen, and how much takes you by surprise. What was the surprise element to the first wines that you brought through?
I think my biggest surprise was the concentration in the fruits and the salinity of the wines, because we're so close to the ocean. You get a lot of that maritime influence blowing in from the ocean, and you can definitely pick it up in the wines. That saline flavors coming from the sea. It's very prominent in the wines.
The wine that is being produced is getting a lot of attention, but so is the area as a whole. A little earlier, Tim was talking about the West Coast Heathfield being the new Swartland, being the new frontier for South African wine. Is that Tim being hopeful and optimistic, or do you think there's a kernel of truth to that?
There's definitely truth to that. So obviously, our region is known for its beautiful flowers this time of year. So the flower season actually started last week. So we are already starting to get a lot of people coming into our area to come and see the flowers. But I get on a weekly basis people driving from Cape Town for the day.
For the day?
For the day to come and taste the wines, have lunch at our restaurant, and they drive back the same day to Cape Town. And we get that for lots.
Just clarify for people who haven't been up there. It's not a 20-minute drive to where you are.
4 hours.
4 hours. So I leave 7 in the morning. I get there 11. I have some lunch. I leave at 1 and I'm home at 5. The wine must be pretty good to travel all that way.
It's beautiful. It's I was speaking to somebody earlier. When you walk in there, it's like you feel free. You know, it's like you can let go. You can be loose and just relax. And there's no stress. There's no traffic. There's not a lot of people. You don't have it's just it's amazing feeling.
It's become a real mecca for people coming to taste the wines as they are. What about the wines that are to come? Where is the West Coast going from here, and where do you think the next section is going to be for Friars Cove?
So obviously our main focus is on white wines, but we're also moving into the area where we are looking at some red wines, but in the lighter style. Still serious, but easier drinking than the full cabs and Merlots and Chivas. But our main focus will always be serious wines.
And just before we let you go off, 2 questions on the. I've asked the other people about the winemaking. You're far away from all of the other guys within the DGB group. Is it still though quite close knit? Do you still engage a lot, chat a lot, share a lot of ideas?
We do. Fortunately, we have the thing nowadays called Teams. So if I need some help, to chat to somebody, I just jump onto Teams and we chat over Wi-Fi, over the internet. Yeah, very easy.
Beauty of technology. And then I'll ask you for a wine, not one of yours, but something else from amongst the DGB group. What should I be looking out for tonight? Pick me 1 or 2 wines I definitely shouldn't miss this evening.
For me, my favourite is Last Elephant.
3 or 4 people have mentioned that already.
And SMP from Bellingham. I love this. That's my 2 favourites.
They are on my list. So 2 is, sorry, it's the 3rd time he's made his way past. My apologies. I will definitely have those on the list, but I also promised you this on the show, and I'm promising in person, as I promised him, I will be up to visit you guys soon to see this magical tank that's got all the bottles in, and to see this growing capital of wine. So expect me soon, Lisa. And I'll also tell you that on my list for dinner later on tonight, I've got a bottle of 2002 Mirandol. I think it might have been slightly before your time.
Yeah, I started in 1998.
Ah, okay. Aged 11. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Have a great time, and thanks for some wonderful wine. There we go. Friars Cove has become just a real cult hit over the last little while. and that whole West Coast region. As Tim Hutchinson said at the start of the show, it's getting more and more and more excitement as it builds. We've got about another 10, 12 minutes to go. We've got one or two winemakers just as we wrap up the show. One that is in an increasingly busy Prison Break market where our DGB showcases, bringing together all of the brands. And included in those brands is one we spoke about on the show not that long ago. A brand that I love dearly because it is a brand that is most famous for providing the venue for my wedding 12 years ago now. Gee, that makes me old. It's lovely to see you in person. How exciting is it? Actually, you. I was considering the actual event, but I'm very grateful that was your interpretation. And how nice is it to come together with everybody and have this great gathering?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And lovely weather.
Well, we laid it on for you. I believe it was this morning. It's been a really, really exciting few years for Backsberg, as it has for DGB. There's just such a momentum amongst both you guys as an estate and the broader group, which I suspect just gives you so much more excitement in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, the variety of wines we work with is very exciting. I work today. We often spoke about my Cabernet Franc.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you allowed to take a sniff?
Hi, mate. You're the first person who's offered me wine this evening.
Oh my God.
So there we go.
Yes.
Boschendal, there we go. I've finally got some wine this evening.
So-
Try us go.
So this is the Cabernet Franc, the Patria, that we, it's new in our range. It's the top of our range. And this is my second most exciting wine. We often spoke about that Chardonnay that I love.
Did indeed.
But this is very unique as well. So also on our stand, we've got a lovely sample of our soil profile, the layered granite soils in Stellenbosch that this vineyard comes from. And Cabernet Franc, just have a sniff.
Straight away, you get that Cabernet Franc profile. It leaks out of the glass.
Nice tea leaves, dried leaves. Huh?
From a grape, it's becoming seriously cool at the moment. We say it time again on the show that it's been a part of a blend for so many years for so many estates. But say Cabernet Franc on its own hasn't really been the done thing until recently. What was it about it that said to you, this is something I need to do?
I think we have the John Martin Bordeaux blend that I love making, working with all 5 varietals, and I love making that blend. And every year this time you make the blend, and then I get to taste it. But then the Cabernet Franc just stands out, and it's sort of so Malbec as well. Malbec is the other one. It's sad for me people can't taste what it is before I blend it. And we just have a beautiful vineyard with very unique Cabernet Franc varietal character, and I love it.
It's one you've spent a bit of time with now. How long do you feel it takes to get an understanding of the terroir of the vineyard, to start to feel that, you know, we're actually quite good mates now. We know how each other work and we're building up that relationship?
For me, about 3 vintages. Others might say quicker, but yeah, for me it takes about 3 for red wine, especially. You have a whole year in oak to look at, and then that first year in bottle I find very interesting as well, and I always learn something. So by the 3rd vintage, I've seen a harvest, 3 harvests of it. I've seen a year in a bottle. I've seen a year in oak.
And in terms of what you now know versus what you perhaps thought when you first arrived, what's changed the most? What surprised you the most as you start to understand the place you now call home?
The new setup, you mean?
Yeah.
So you asked me a trick question. What do you mean? What's different?
When you arrived and you thought, no, and I'm still drinking this. When you arrived and you thought, you know, this is kind of the wine that I think we're going to get, versus what you now understand from the terroir 3 vintages on.
I was very used to working on Backsberg with the same vineyards, so I was actually quite comfortable. I knew the vineyards very well. I also lived on the farm, so I was able to work around them, and I knew when to pick them. And before of Backsberg, consistency was the thing people valued and spoke about, and I was very concerned about that we're going to change and that we're not going to be consistent. And I think I found consistency in other places and ways. And the wines, I'm having consistent wine again, which I'm surprised. I didn't expect that. And the vineyards, the growers are very loyal to us. So I use the same vineyard every year again, and I got to pick vineyards that I would never ever have had before. So especially that Chardonnay vineyard, this Cabernet Franc vineyard, all my Bordeaux vineyards of John Martin. And one house has got now 2 vineyards. So it's like new children after my others were growing.
And that is a lovely part of having a property like Backsberg. It's now got over 100 years of heritage. Yes, there are new things you can do, new interpretations, and bring your own touch of magic. But there's also so much of the history and of the heritage that you get to draw from as a winemaker.
Yeah. So there's also a standard that's expected of the wine, and people have a certain understanding of it that I also always have to be compassionate about. I don't just change things or do what I like always, but most often I do.
Well, what you are doing, I'm certainly liking, because I've got a real weakness for Cabernet Franc. I've got a weakness for a few wines, so I'll ask you, before you slip off to dazzle more people, for a recommendation. I've asked everybody so far, not something from Backsberg, but from one of the other brands within the family. What's one of the other wines here this evening that I should definitely make sure I don't miss?
In Franschhoek, we have the oldest vineyard in Franschhoek, the oldest Semillon Blanc. We make the Grand Neige Semillon from.
That's a lovely wine,
And
isn't
that's
it?
the old road wine, but it's the most special vineyard. That vineyard, you just sit in that vineyard, and the vineyard is over 82 years old, but it's so calm and quiet and peaceful. It's beautiful vineyard and beautiful wine.
And that old vine Franschhoek Semillon story is such a lovely one. So this is the start time. Lovely to have you here in person. And I'm due a return down to Backsberg soon to go and celebrate. So I'll look forward to that visit.
You can come and look at my winery when you come, because it's right next to the tasting room now.
I look forward to it. Lovely to see you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. The first glass of wine anybody's given me tonight. Not a bad way to start the Cabernet Franc from Backsberg. And as I say, it's an estate that has such a special place for me, given I got married there. But it's also one that's got well over 100 years of delivering wine that is consistent and it's got such history to it. So there we go. There is Bagsberg. In fact, we've just been speaking about the Old Road Wine Company, which makes for a rather natural transition.
How's it going? How are
Good to
you?
see you. Welcome.
Yeah, all good.
I must,
Can't complain.
before we talk about the 12 month Syrah, I must talk about the wine that's just been mentioned by your Backsberg colleague. And that's some 82-year-old Semillon, that Grand Mère. I think people are starting to understand Semillon a bit more and not be scared off by this thing they can't quite pronounce. And it's probably those older vines in Franschhoek that have had a really big driving force, and by extension, some award-winning wine that you've made.
Yeah, well, we're very fortunate to work with the Semillon. I mean, planted in 1936, they're very special to us. And it's great to work with old vines, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We want to showcase terroir. We want to showcase what the vines are trying to give us. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing to work with them. So, yeah, we're very fortunate in that sense.
Tell me a little bit about this brand before we jump into the Syrah, because it's a reasonably recent brand, and yet it pops up in top tens. It pops up on award lists. It's a brand that's done exceedingly well in a fairly short space of time.
Yeah, we are very fortunate. We've done exceptionally well in a very short time. But the brand goes about showcasing terroir. We want to showcase different sites. So obviously our single vineyards in Franschhoek, where we have the Semillon, the Chenin Blanc, which are all part of the Old Vine project. We have the Peppermint Syrah, and then we also have the Swartland, the two Swartland wines, which the 12 Mile is part of Swartland. So Old Road's all about the terroir, the specific sites, and then again also about the characters that helped shape Franschhoek back in the day. So we're going back to the old dusty road of the Franschhoek Valley. And literally when the Semillon was planted back in those old days. So, like I said, it's all about terroir. It's all about showcasing what can be done in Franschhoek and what can be done in Swartland. And really, yeah, showcasing the best of what we can get.
it's not something absolutely brand new in terms of understanding terroir and deciding, right, this is the best from here. We want to take advantage of it. But whether it's guys like yourself or a number of other top producers, I look at Boschendal earlier with the Elgin Chardonnay, it's fine-tuning that understanding and really making it work as best as possible to create the best glass for me to have at the end of the day.
I agree with you, and that's magic to work with specific sites. But like I said, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just want to showcase what there is, what we can produce. And yeah, like I say, fine-tuning to make the best one that everybody can enjoy, especially you and I at the end of the day.
So let's try some Swartland Syrah. You're only the second person who's given me wine today. I have to lodge a complaint with Tim Hutchinson. Clearly his leadership leaves a lot to be desired. 12 Mile Syrah, I love the stories behind all of your names because they've all got a really cool narrative. Tell me about 12 Mile.
Okay, so 12 Mile is the distance the postman rode in the olden days to deliver the post. Hence the little bicycle with the post box on it, and so that's where the name comes from. The grapes come from a farm in the Paardeberg, so the back of Paul, and the vines are not that old, only about 12 years old vines. But these vineyards are unique. It's all about picking at the right time. We don't look at the sugar, we don't look at the vines. We literally taste and say, okay, time to pick, and off we go. This vintage, we had an alcohol of 13.5, 14. Next year's vintage, we had an alcohol of 13%. So it's all about the timing and picking at the right time, obviously. We use old barrels. We have 10% whole bunch fermentation. It only spends 8 months in barrel, and that is it. We just want to showcase, once again, what we can make out of this wine.
You make it sound really easy. I've just wandered through the vineyard on a Tuesday. Yes, right. Let's go. How precise is that? What is it that tells you, right, this is
we're looking for specific flavors. If we find we have that spice, we have those red flavors, no green flavors, we're as happy as Larry, and we pick tomorrow.
And how narrow is that window? Have you got
so we got 3-4 days. Basically, we're looking at that's our hottest time. We pick it at the end of February. So if you miss that and we get a heat wave, you tend to lose those flavors. So it's a narrow window, and you've got to be on it. But we're lucky. We've got a good team. We've got a guy that pick quickly. So if we say pick tomorrow, then off we go. We're lucky. Like I said, we're just fortunate.
You've got wonderful little pockets. I've lost count of the number of winemakers who've said that they're only going to make 2 or 3 or 4 wines, and that is it.
Yeah.
You've got a really nice selection now. Does it end where it is, or is that horizon going to keep happening on?
We keep experimenting always. So we picked another old vineyard this year. That's in barrel. So we'll see. Maybe we'll release something at the end of the year. We're hoping to. And also a variety that was been around for a long time. Took a dip. Some of the younger guys are bringing it back, and very happy with the one. So we're going to take twist Andrew and Tim's arm just to make a bottle of 1,000 bottles just to see how it goes. We'll see at the end of the year if we get that right.
All right. Well, we'll get you back on the show to try that when it makes an appearance. And before you shoot off to deliver some more 12 Mile, you get the same question everybody else does. A wine not from the old road stable that's in here that this evening I should be looking out for and having a crack at.
You just had my colleague, but I would definitely try the Last Elephant. The Bordeaux blend from Frantic Cellars. That's a top class Bordeaux, the best grapes we can get out of the Helderberg region. That's really an amazing wine. And something you should definitely try.
You're the 5th person who's gone with that as a selection. Clearly, that is something you're right. Thank you for the wine.
Yeah, thanks a lot. There was a lovely time here, and we'll chat again.
Have a fantastic evening. Cheers, mate. So there we go. Not just terrific wine to grab a hold of, but also some wonderful stories. You had the 12 Mile story there in terms of the road and the postman making that journey by bicycle. There's stories about mad butchers, and there's stories about the characters, the people of that Franchuk Valley and that Franchuk village, and it all goes back to talk through the history that turns itself into these stories behind the Old Road Wine Company. If you think from a marketing perspective, no matter how good the wine is, you've still got to be able to sell it, and he's got really good wine with some really fun stories to back up as well. And I think once people get into that narrative, it just gives them a really nice access point to some really, really good wine. And that just about wraps us up. We've got one last special guest on the show before we say goodbye from the Prison Break Market, which is where we are trying out the very best of DGB. and the wines that they have. And our last guests for this evening, I think we've got a couple of them. We've got Richard and Ricardo. They're going to be sweeping in. Gentlemen, come and join me. Lovely to have you here. Ricardo, how are you? Good. Richard, lovely to see you. Welcome, guys. All right, I have to finish this one off because we're ending on a high. We've got two world-class winemakers. One of them, despite all right. Okay, and we're back. Apologies for that. You'd never believe me, but there was load shedding in South Africa, and that wreaked havoc as we jumped back online. And we wanted to come back online, though, because we've got two very special guests to wrap up. One of them is a relatively recent addition to the brand. Last time I saw him, we were slugging back the Urbanville Hills. Now we get to drink some Bellingham, along with a man who's famous for blowing up kitchens in his youth. Guys, lovely to have you both on.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers.
Welcome. And thank you for this, because this is a wine a couple of people have mentioned already. I think it's still a 97 pointer for decanter or thereabouts. Tell me about the Frida.
Okay, so yeah, Ricardo makes a white wine, so yeah, it would be better for him, yeah, basically, yeah, for me to leave that one for him. So
The premiums on top of the triangle, so you get the obviously the one at series, and then the founder series. So the free is part of the founder series. Very small volumes that you produce. So 900 liters plus minus 3 barrels each year. We're not bound to one specific buyer. So it can be, we must make the best possible one. And we also we're not going to go for we see the so and then the components of a specific print or one the batch 55% channel out, 10% channel, and 40% semi-on, and then 5% around.
And that comes together beautifully. The texture of this wine, and it's mentions a number of people already. Just right. What allows you to work out right? If I want this much of this much of that, is it kind of a sense, or is it more of a kind of a just with time you work out?
No, I'm not saying so. It's quite a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of tasting and re-tasting. Like, it's not one thing. It will take a week or two to make the final decision. So we usually taste together, like two of us. So and we will go back and forth, and play with different varieties.
we sometimes end up fighting about what's the best one, yeah, which is also good because you can bounce some off each other, and then he prefers that, I prefer this. Yeah, but anyway, these blends will take months sometimes to do because you want to get it just right, spot on. So yeah, and very small volumes, which also makes it tricky. You don't just taste vineyards, you're also tasting individual barrels within a vineyard. So it becomes a lot of work, but it's also very rewarding and very pleasurable work, if I can put it that way as well. So.
And is there that, for both of them, is there that eureka moment where I've splashed this, splashed that, and I'm like, hang on, this is just right?
Yeah, I think you get a feeling at some point. At some point you get a feeling, and I think there's sometimes it's sort of like Richard is making it 100% happy, but sometimes we need to make a final decision. Or I'm not happy, but we not compromise and come to a point to make it.
All right. Dan, when we get to levels like that, it's not, the question is not quality. You can make 100 different blends, all of a fantastic quality, but it's all style driven. So we're also looking at a style that's also going to showcase that specific terroir as well. So we also don't want to do too much intervention where you sort of overshadow that as well.
We are almost wrapped up with the show. Before we do, what have you got with me? Final wine for
our Bushfine Pinotage from our Bellingham series.
Lovely.
So if you think of Bellingham, you're going to think Chenin and Pinotage, I guess, which are two probably most famous wines. So yeah, this is the current vintage of our Bushfine Pinotage.
I shall have a little touch, purely for research purposes.
There we go. So this particular vintage, it was, we normally use 3 vineyards. There's a vineyard in Stellenbosch, there's a vineyard in Darling, and a vineyard in Cape Town, which is the Durban area. But this particular year, the Cape Town and the Darling, the two cool climate sites were a little bit better than the Stellenbosch. So this is exclusively for the cool climate sites.
And that bush vine, for people who aren't familiar with how it impacts, why is that lending so much to this particular one?
Your crop yield is a little bit smaller. Your ripening is a little bit better as well. So you get more concentration, smaller berries, but definitely a little bit better tannin ripeness as well. So more of a silky, sort of a coating, textural mouthfeel as well. But the cool climate sites, we like the cool climate sites because they give you more purity, more freshness. But the ripening is also a bit slower. So you get, we harvest generally about 2 weeks later. That would be doing the Stellenbosch sites as well. So Stellenbosch wines are fantastic, but I particularly like the cool sites as well.
I particularly like this, and I particularly like that, and I'm particularly happy to let both of you on. Sadly, we're at the end of the show, so we're going to have to do this in a little more detail in due course, and apologies again for our power cut. I want to take technical hassles on the show. What I will do, though, is urge you to not just try the free, which is fantastic, the Bushwine Pinotage, which is unique and striking, but also across the board from the bubbles we had at the start of the evening with Boschendal, through a selection of the old road wines, some of the Backsberg, that Cabernet Franc in particular, is a real delight. And that's without several of the other brands. The Price Cove as well, taking Sauvignon Blanc into really cool and exciting spaces. DGB, as Tim's smile earlier on demonstrated, have a lot to be happy about, but they've also got a lot of ambition and have a lot of adventure still to come, particularly in the space of the winemakers they have with it. So, guys, thanks, darling. Cheers, Dan. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Have fun with it. And we will see you back on the show on Thursday when we're going to be celebrating some very cool wine, in this case Shiraz, headlined by Carl Schultz and the wines of Paardenburg. That does it for this evening on Dan Really Likes Wine, live from the Prison Break Market with the DGB Showcase, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. We'll see you again live on Thursday. I want to drink some wine. Goodbye. Cheers.